Mary Jean laughed about the witness protection, so she knows what I'm talking about, but she's still here, so I guess we're all right. All right. Welcome everybody to the November Delta Club membership meeting. Who would have thought when we started our first Zoom meeting? What was our first one? I guess April, because I think we had a March meeting and everything kind of shut down after March. Who would have thought we'd still be doing Zoom meetings? But especially with what's been going on here lately, you know, the numbers have been going up. Friend of my wife, their families got several people, and I know that we've got a member of the board whose grandfather's been affected by it and different things. So it is starting to come back around, like I think we all knew that it probably would this fall. So we will probably keep doing this for a couple more months. But, you know, it was still nice that we were able to get together for, you know, junk in the trunk and different things. So, but it's good that we can also do this. All right. Let's get the business out of the way. And then I know that tonight we've got a presentation from Ian about DMR. I got a DMR radio that I can't do much with because I sure can't figure it out. Maybe he can help me out. Let's get started. Who's going to fill in for Ham tonight? The treasurer's report and the minutes.
Speaking of Ham, I talked to him, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, and he said he doesn't come on because he cannot hear on Zoom. So okay. He just doesn't come on. But I'll make a move that we accept the minutes as printed in Sparks.
All right. All right. We got a second from Tom. It looked like to me. All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We've still got money in the bank and everything's going good. Let's see. Joe, while you're unmuted, you've usually got a lot to share with us. You want to add what you've got?
Well, we've got a general class going with 6 students. The last class we only had 3, but I would like to thank Bobby KD5BS for taking the recording and putting it up on a website so the students can review it or look at it for the first time if they missed the class. And I'm trying to keep it to where we can then have it for other people that might want to do it online rather than they'll catch not only the W9UUU presentation, but the comments and all of that go along with it, including the breaks. And then looks like I might have or try to get, if I have enough people interested, and if somebody's interested, they need to send me an email about extra class to see if we do an extra class in January on Zoom or start another technician class. That'll be up in the air. If you're interested in getting your extra, let me know so I can make a decision. I'll need to know the first part of December so we can put it in December Sparks, whether there's going to be an extra class or a technician class. And then the only other thing is the ARRL opposing the FCC $50 605 change renewal. The only thing it doesn't charge for is change of address. But if you're updating information, renewing your license or vanity or any of the actions or modifying it in some way, it'd be a $50 charge, and you need to respond by the 15th of November, which is what, in 5 days.
Right. Right.
ARRL is encouraging you to put in individual information rather than having a boilerplate type letter going to the FCC. A couple of the points is that one, it's non-pecuniary, which means we cannot make money on ham radio. It's for emergency communications. For youngsters to get into it, I think it will be a hurdle, particularly for youngsters whose parents are not ham radio operators. And if they're looking at STEM people trying to get in, I think it'll be a block if that $50. To the contrary, they might say that ham radio spends thousands of dollars on money, but it's usually after they've been in it a while before they start spending a lot of money.
Right.
And there's a lot of people that buy a $30, $35 FM radio, and that's it. And to get into it and see what happens for quite a while before they do anything else. So I encourage everybody to send in entry into the FCC as opposing the $50 fee for any renewals or the new licensees, modifications of the license other than address and upgrades upgrades and vanities. That's all.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe. Do you have any idea on vanity calls? It like took me over 60 applications to get my vanity call. And does that mean $50 a time?
I'm not sure. It might be.
I mean, that's a consideration.
I hadn't thought about that because you were asking for different things and there were
well, I'm thinking it, but on vanity, I think it's only if you get a call.
Well, I'm just saying, it costs you to apply.
Yeah. Well, and then they returned it if you didn't get a call.
I wasn't sure about that.
Yeah. That's why they cut out the fee. That's why they cut the fee out, because it was costing them more to return all the checks than it was of money that they were getting actually for the vanity call situation.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
I mean, it might be that every time you put an application in for a vanity and don't get it, they might consider that as money down the drain for you.
Yeah, $50.
Well, it was
50,
pretty bad.
50 times 60 is a lot.
Depends on how much you really want a call sign, isn't it?
It is. That'll sure knock it down. Okay, that was it.
No, that was a good question. That's something I haven't heard about and didn't consider. So that was good. Does anybody, while we're on that one, because that was one of the things on my notes, does anybody else have any questions, comments, anything else on that one? That one, we've sent out an email. It's in the Sparks, but while we're in the new normal for being in person, this is a good time if you've got a question or.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I posted that ARRL link on a couple Facebook groups, and someone commented that if you did it electronically, you didn't have to pay the $50, but I don't think he knows what he's talking about. So is that true?
He doesn't know what he's talking about.
That's what I figured.
Yeah. That's. I mean, because it sounds like that one sounded pretty broad, that they were trying to get, the fee for anything they could. So no, I don't think that's right. The main thing is we need to shut that door before they put their foot in the door and do anything else on that one, because that just opens up a whole lot of other opportunity. All right. Anybody else got any questions? Joe's a good. He's in touch with ARRL so much. He's a good one to get some more information on that. And just to reemphasize what he was saying, we talked about as a board, we talked about sending y'all a letter, a sample letter that y'all could use, but that ARRL themselves has said, you know, if everybody just cut and paste the letter, it makes it a lot less effective. So, you know, we're happy to.
On the ARRL website, they have some talking points or
Right.
points to consider.
Right.
So.
Right. They've got some, they've got some things to talk about, but they don't have a, you know, I've done some of these things before for different organizations, and sometimes they'll have a form letter, and sometimes they don't. And this is a case where they feel that it's going to be more effective if it's individual and you know, I can see their point. You know, they're going before a committee and they've got a bunch of them that are the same, and it looks kind of like a spam type thing if it's the same type word for word. So
I submitted, there's an express submission that you can use that you don't have to do the form, and it's really straightforward. I submitted mine today.
okay. Basically just click on it and are you for it or against it, and you don't have to.
Well, they ask you, it's got a comment box.
Okay, got it, but you don't have to fill it in.
Correct. Well, you tell them what your opinion is. You
Right,
don't want to say
right. But don't have to add too much more to it. Okay, so
right.
if you're interested, you know, we're not saying that you have to do it, but it is something that's going to be going to impact everybody eventually.
Everybody will be affected.
Right. It's something everybody be affected, and we want to make you aware. We'd rather let you know about it now before you can stop it, rather than, you know, later down the road we tell you, okay, here's what they put in place, and you didn't feel like you had anything to do about it. All right. Anybody else have any announcements? I got a few things, but anybody got anything else they wanted to say while they're thinking about it?
There's one person, 3rd Battalion, Tennessee Guard. If you can put your name and call sign, it would help us.
Okay. All right. Tonight, I had a couple of notes for tonight. Usually, as you can probably tell, I kind of wing this thing, but tonight we've got a couple of things going on, so I wanted to have some notes. All right. One of the main things for tonight is, of all things, the election. I think we're all tired of hearing about elections, but I promise you this one won't drag on as long as the one we just went through. I think everybody has heard the candidates for this election for the 2021 year. They were in Sparks, but just to review it real quick. President, Steve Frazier. Vice President, Mary Jean Hall. Treasurer is Jim Martin. Secretary is Carolyn Horn. Director of Programs, we've got a dual role going on there, Ray Cole. And he asked if Ian would stay on and help him with that, and Ian agreed to that. Director of Publications is Mike Harrison. Director of Meetings and Special Events, the man who's worked real hard this year, Scott Adams. And Director of Training is Joe Lowenthal. I haven't heard of anybody else that you know, wanted their name on the ballot, and no enemies of anybody added their enemies to the list. So as it stands right now, we've only got one candidate for each position. So unless anybody's got anything else to say, I'm saying we've got our board members for next year. Does anybody have any other comments, additions, subtractions? All right, do we have a motion? Like I said, do we have a motion to accept as presented?
I so move.
All right, Lynn. I think Joe was going to do it, so he'll be our
Second it.
second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Main thing on this one, any
Aye.
opposed? Keep in mind, this is recorded, so, all right. So we officially, our polls were right. And everybody won. All right. That was the main thing I wanted to be sure that we got done tonight. Let's see, what else have I got here? I mentioned it in my President's Corner, and something else I wanted to reemphasize in case somebody hasn't seen that. November is when I usually recognize our veterans in the group. That's just something that's been close and dear to me, as because I know that we've got a lot of members that did serve, and you know, you continue to serve your community by being a ham radio operator, and was speaking for myself, but also hopefully speaking for the club. I'd like to thank you for your service. And normally what I like to do is represent by the different time frames that people serve. That's going to be a little bit harder to do tonight, but and then it's also come to my attention by doing that. Sometimes I kind of, some of the people felt like I was excluding some people because they kind of fell in the gaps in there. So maybe we'll skip doing it that way tonight, but just in general, say thank you to everybody who served, and who served in the past, who's serving now, and continues to serve the community by being a ham radio operator. Let's see. All right, I had the license thing. Joe covered that one pretty well. I've got some good news. I'm on the Facebook page or something for Swamp Stompers. I've got a few friends that are I've made some friends by doing that before, but I've got some personal friends that are active in that group. And so I think I'm on their Facebook page, and I saw something a week or so ago that they are planning on doing a Swamp Stompers event this year or next year. I keep saying this year, but it's because it's January. It's going to be, it's on a Saturday. For years, it used to be on a Sunday, but it's a Saturday. And I should have written down the date. I think it's the 15th. It's 15th or whatever the 10th is for Saturday in January. I saw it on their Facebook page right away. I emailed the contact information email that was on there, and I told them, hey, you know, Delta Club is interested in supporting them again. And they answered me back, and they said they'd love to have us. We're a critical part of Swamp Stompers, and so we'll start working on that and get the volunteers together for that. But plan on that one. I'm pretty sure unless things get more restricted, they will do it. They, as a group, they did an event that I know of in October over at Big Hill Pond. They had several runners. They had an event as big or bigger than Swamp Stompers in October. So they are, you know, actively doing it unless they are just totally shut down.
It's the 16th.
16th. All right, thanks, Joe. Let's see. What else did I have? Speaking of getting together, this is a weekend. This is a Friday where some of us get together at Danvers on Friday morning. You know, it's outside. They've got a nice patio. Usually we sit outside. It's a nice patio out there. The weather stays nice. This would be a nice time to do that. That's the Danvers there on Germantown Road. I think they open at 7. People get there sometime, usually between 7 and 8. You know, if you're looking for something to do on Friday morning, join us there. That's all I really had.
Open at 6:30.
Open at 6:30. All right, you that when you get there?
No,
No. Okay.
6:45.
All right, all right. But that's been you know, we've had 3, 4, 5, you know, 6 people there. And it's it hasn't been a great turnout, but I didn't start going on Fridays until not too long ago, because until this year I was working. But it's a nice time to get together, and they've got a nice breakfast. So. Okay.
Even Richard showed up with no cane.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
One thing, for the new hams that are looking at ham license plates, I think they're still on hold because the building where those plates were made, northeast of Nashville, in northeast Nashville, got destroyed in the tornado in February, and they haven't come back online yet, as far as I know.
Wow. One more thing to add to the list for 2020, huh?
Yep.
Okay. And I'm looking through who's online here. I got a friend of mine who is a ham operator who called me the other day asking if I knew much about APRS weather stations, setting those up. And I said, I'm familiar with that they exist, but how to do it, I don't know. Has anybody set up one, or want to raise your hand and say that they know much about it?
I set up a weather station.
You've got one?
Yes.
All right. I might, if you don't mind, if I get send you the information of who was asking, can he get in touch with you? He's got a couple
Sure.
of how to set something up.
Yep.
Okay. All right. He I don't think he's actually a member of Delta Club, but I think he came to Junk in the Trunk and he asked about this, so he's on the hook. We just need to set the hook. He's somebody that's pretty busy, so. But he called me and I said I'm familiar with it, but couldn't help him any more than what he already has done.
Yeah, I have it in my backyard.
Okay, good. I knew somebody probably would. All right. All right. Anybody have anything else before we turn it over to Ian? Man, can't get y'all to quit talking when we get together in the meetings. But all right.
It's because you're recording it.
I know it. I don't volunteer for anything. That's for sure. All right, Ian, the floor is yours. I should have it where you can share, because I'm assuming you got some screens to share because you've done good about that. I tell you, give me just a second. I got 2 people coming in.
All right.
And they should be coming in now. All right.
All right. We're good.
I think we're good.
So just as another reminder for some of the new people, if you'll put your call sign in here, it helps with our record keeping. Thanks everybody for taking the time to join. The program is about DMR programming tonight. There's a lot of information about DMR out there. This is probably a thimbleful, but it's hopefully enough. It's geared to get you familiar enough with terms that you can go dig more if you need more information, and hopefully enough to get you familiar with being able to put some programming in your radio and to get on the air with it.
Hey, and while I'm thinking about it, a reminder, we are recording this. So, you know, if you want it, if I usually post this the next day on our Facebook page. So if you want to go back and look at it there, it'll be there. And if you're not on Facebook, but something about this, you know, that you want to go back and look at, shoot me an email and I'll send you a link where you can watch the video again, if that would help you.
I'm getting my screen up here.
All right.
All right.
Tom Butis, how'd your stock do today?
All right, there we go.
All right. So it's DMR programming. There's some links out here that I'm going to send to get put up on the website. But there's Mick Lore has a entire page dedicated to DMR and a lot of pages underneath that. They've got a basic walkthrough. There's a DMRfordummies.com that does a very basic walkthrough. They have a lot of information on there that I've pulled into here to make it a little more digestible if you're not familiar with it already. And then a link to where you have to go and get a DMR ID to program into your radio. And then our local repeater here, which is the W4LET. If you're not familiar with where it is, it's in Cordova, very close to, if not almost inside of Shelby Farms.
Germantown Road and Fisher Steel
Yeah.
Road, basically.
All right. So a little bit of history. DMR stands for Digital Mobile Radio. It's an open digital standard. It came from Commercial Products. The main
Hey, Ian,
two.
did you change screens? It didn't change on our side.
Oh, sorry about that.
There you go.
So the main two that are similar, and there's some crossover between them. You're welcome to dig more into these. I didn't cover much on these since that's not really our focus. It's P25 and NXDN, and then Motorola's Moto Turbo, which I've heard plenty about Moto Turbo. I don't really delve into it because Motorola's equipment is more expensive than I care to spend. If you've ever seen any of it priced, it was designed with 3 tiers. So you'll often see like DMR tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3. 1 and 2 are considered conventional. They're much less complex. Tier 3, if you've ever heard anybody refer to a trunk system, trunk radio, or a digital trunk, it's used very widely with law enforcement. Some public safety is starting to use it, and even some larger businesses have used it, but it's most of what I've seen around here for tier 3 is things like law enforcement, and you have the more expensive scanners and things that can pull in a trunk system. Some of them do include encryption, like law enforcement. Some of those, they have certain parts of their system that are encrypted, but obviously any of those are specifically for non-amateur use. DMR is allowed for amateur radio operators since it's not encrypted, and I've not seen a radio marketed towards amateur use that includes encryption. I mentioned Motorola's equipment. I have a friend of mine loves his Motorola, which is fine. If he wants to spend the cash on it, he's welcome to. They do have some encryption options there, but of course, I did want to make sure to note that that is not applicable for amateur use. Some DMR basics. Everybody needs to have a DMR ID if you intend to use a DMR radio. It's assigned per your call sign. It identifies your specific call sign to a DMR network. It doesn't replace your need to ID as you would on an analog radio. I've seen a few people ask the question before in different places. You know, if my call sign shows up on the other person's radio, do I need to identify? And you still do, because there's some steps you have to take for that to happen. It's not automatic, so it's still considered appropriate to make sure that you identify. Zone, it's just a logical grouping of your different frequencies and channels. This can be done however you want to do it. I do it a few different ways. You can do it by location, by activity, by the repeater system. Since I have a DMR radio that I typically use also for events because it does analog, I have location is normally what I run, just the Memphis area, and then I can switch to the zone for, say, Swamp Stompers that has only the Swamp Stompers frequencies in there, so it's really easy for me to navigate around. And then whenever the event is over with, I can jump back to just my normal Memphis zone. Time slot is another term you'll see. DMR uses 2 time slots. We'll call them TS1 or TS2. Excuse me. They'll also be referred to as repeater slot 1 or 2. So if you want more detailed information on that, you're welcome to look it up. It's refers to the use of TDMA, which basically splits the span of time that a transmission is happening into 30 millisecond intervals for DMR, so that you have 1 and 2. Say the first 30 milliseconds is slot 1, the second 30 milliseconds is slot 2. Another 30 milliseconds after that goes back to slot 1. So you end up with the ability for it to seem like there are 2 conversations happening at the same time, which in reality, it's just switching back and forth quickly enough that humans don't notice it. But it comes into play more if a repeater is busier, if it's busy enough with multiple conversations. If you've ever watched a video on DMR use or seen anybody use one, sometimes you'll hear a tone like it's rejecting their attempt to transmit. It just means that both slots are taken up at that particular point in time based on how the radio is programmed. Talk groups. The easiest thing I've seen to liken this to is it's kind of like rooms of a house, or on analog, it's a general frequency. With DMR, you can have multiple talk groups on the same frequency. We'll get to that in a little bit. But operators on the same talk group usually intend to communicate or listen to each other. This can apply
be right in there. Thank you.
whether it's simplex, repeater, or with DMR repeaters linked over the internet. Color code, I've seen this referenced. It's basically the digital DMR equivalent of a CTCSS code, or frequency rather, tone. But I've only ever seen color code 1 used. So it's worth noting whenever you have to program it, but there's not much more depth to it in the DMR use in this area. Some very basic pros and cons. Again, this list is not far from exhaustive. I'm sure that you can come up with plenty more. But DMR is typically considered a little bit better on spectrum efficiency. Like I mentioned with time slot 1 and 2, takes up the same bandwidth, but has 2 conversations across the same bandwidth allotment. Many of the radios support multiple operations. Like I said, I have a DMR radio that also does analog. It's my primary HT that I use. The audio is, as long as you are not, on the fringe of a repeater area or a coverage area, the audio quality is typically much clearer. A signal will stay clear over more distance. This is not a hard and true science that DMR can go further in the right conditions. What that means is you get clearer audio for further from the coverage area. I've seen some people try and cite statistics that it's a 30% distance improvement, but that's far from a guarantee. It's just based on the fact that the signal is converted, the audio is converted into digital before it's converted into a radio signal and then converted back. It allows for essentially the signal to drop to a lower quality, reaching its destination before you start to have that audio drop out. And then because whenever you're transmitting, your radio essentially transmits 30 milliseconds off, 30 milliseconds on, and back and forth, you can get a longer battery life out of it. Some of the cons for DMR, The equipment is typically more expensive than an analog radio, especially depending on what you want to look for in a DMR radio. There's a little more setup required. You have to apply for the additional ID, the DMR ID, and it's, at least on the ones that I've seen, they're a bit more difficult to program from the actual face of the radio. Do we have any questions so far before I move on to the next part of this? All right. So these are the basics, some screenshots I took of my programming. Not all the software is the same, but most of them that I've seen look similar enough to get the idea behind it. These are just your general settings. One of the ones that I noted is the voice announcement down here. I noted that because I have encountered some people that if they can't read the screen or see the screen, or if they just don't want to have to look at it, if you keep the radio in your pocket and have a speaker mic, then as you switch through, then just like on an analog radio, it will announce for you as you click through your channels.
Okay, hey, Ian, while you're talking about programming, is this specific to, are the different programs different for each radio, or is this something like Chirp where it's generic? Or
so this is, they typically call it a CPS, which is just the programming software. Each manufacturer typically releases theirs. If you have a TYT, I usually get it from the TYT website.
Okay. So whichever brand you have, they've usually got their own programming software that you can use.
Yeah, but all of the ones that I've seen examples of or watched other people program radios for, the layout and the workflow is very similar between them.
All right, and that makes sense. But I just want to make sure that so if somebody, because where to get, you kind of jumped into how to do it instead of where to do it. So it is specific. If you've got a different, whatever radio you've got, look at their website, and that's where you should be able to find the programming software.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. No problem.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. I did kind of gloss over that because it can be different. But I only specifically have experience directly programming a TYT. And so if this looks a little bit different from yours, that's going to be why. But the main two things is you'll need to make sure you put in a radio name. It can really just be your call sign, and then a radio ID, which is the DMR ID that we talked about, which I'll go into more detail on that in a minute. But on just the general screen, those are the two things that you have to have for your radio to function properly. Obviously, there are a lot of other options here. And one of the others that you might want to look at in case you end up leaving your radio somewhere is the intro screen, which is just what it sounds like. It's the screen that comes up whenever you turn the radio on. I have my call sign and my phone number in there in case it falls out of my pocket. Maybe somebody will turn it on and see a phone number and get it back to me. The different menu items, I know for mine, one of the ones that I really wanted to make sure was turned on was this program radio option. And that's because without that being turned on first in the programming software, I was not able to program from the front face of my radio. So turning that on and then applying that to your radio, if your radio has that option, allows you to program it from the face of it. Some of them come where you don't have to turn this on yourself first. It's already on. But that was something I've had to do with mine. All right, so just a general analog channel. Make sure channel mode, of course, says analog. Your channel name. your receive and your transmit frequency. I highlighted this box a little differently because I know if you do any public service listening, this is a good option to have. Turn it to receive only so that you can't accidentally end up transmitting and causing a potential problem for somebody else. And then, of course, if you need the CTCSS, DEC just stands for decode, so that's your receive, which you almost never need. And then ENC is for encode, so that's whatever your PL tone needs to be for that particular frequency. Analog channels are pretty much what everybody's already used to, so that covers those. The next step for digital is your contacts. So just as anybody that wants to use a DMR radio needs to register their DMR ID, there is an equivalent, essentially a DMR ID for a group, which is what they call the talk group. Like the local Memphis talk group is 314-706. There's a Tennessee statewide talk group, which is 3147. There's what they call a parrot, which is just what it sounds like. It's essentially a test. You can transmit to that particular ID, which is 9990, at least here locally. And then after a couple of seconds, it transmits your own voice back to you just as a test to make sure you can get in and out of the repeater. There are more talk groups than we can go over, even if we took a whole hour just reading them off. So I do encourage you to go look for ones that interest you. They've got them for multiple areas. There's an Arkansas talk group. One of the ones that has had some activity this year, unfortunately, it's good that we have it, but it's unfortunate it needed activated, was the National Weather Service talk group. There's a hurricane monitoring talk group out there as well. And then if you get familiar enough that you are linking temporary talk groups, which just means it's not permanently linked on that repeater, the disconnect to clear those is the 4000 caller ID.
And I did notice you're on the TGIF group, so that's good.
yeah. There are so many, and you really just have to kind of look through a list of them to see which ones would be interesting to you. Just like finding a repeater in a new area that you haven't been to before, aren't familiar with. You look through what you want to maybe be involved in and listen to see if that's what you think it is and something that you can participate in or want to leave on your radio, and work through them that way. It takes a little bit of trial and error, just like finding a repeater system. All right, so digital channel, this is the same screen as the analog channel, but of course we want to make sure that we select the digital channel mode. Same thing with the channel name and the receive and transmit frequency. You still have the same receive only option. You do not have, because DMR doesn't use CTCSS, you don't have any of those options. Those just get grayed out whenever you select the digital channel mode. And then the other part of it is on our prior screen where it says contact name, that matches the contact name on the screen. So you have, just like you have to make sure that all the settings on your analog channel match. So for your digital channel, you have a frequency, and then you also have to link in that contact name to make sure that that transmits on that frequency to that specific contact. And then this is also where the color code and the repeater slot come into play. So the repeater slot is going to be unique, not necessarily unique. It'll either be 1 or 2, but it's going to be based on what repeater you're attempting to access or use it through. The best way to find that is going to be through either the repeater page or find someone local who's published information about that repeater as to which talk groups are on which repeater slot. So ours here for the local Memphis, what they call the Memphis Metro talk group is repeater slot 2. All right. So then this is where your zones come in. You have to set it up after all of your zones are in.
Like they're gonna go to like the Hyde Park.
Did somebody have a question? Okay. So this is where your zones come in. So on my radio, like on a lot of them, there's an A and a B so that I can monitor 2 frequencies at the same time. So you just need to add a zone, name it however you like. Again, I name mine by the area since this is where I am 98% of the time. And then you tell it to add the available channels into either A or B. You can have the same channel in both. If that's something that you need. I don't typically use that myself. I also try and split mine so that I have B as my analog frequencies, and then A, I have all of my DMR frequencies for the area. I do want to, well, I'll pause for questions, but I am going to go through an example of a blank configuration and then work through our local repeater setup and getting a talk group put into it. So are there any questions before I jump to that? All right.
All right.
Ian,
Yes.
when you get done, would you show the first screen with the URL link so I can make a snip of it?
Yeah, I can roll back to that real quick too.
Thank you. All right. That's all I had.
There we go. Hey, Ray, there you go. Grab it
Okay,
now.
thank you. I'm doing it.
All right.
You got it?
1 second.
All right.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Great. And I know it seems like a lot of information. I try and give enough information that people can either get more interested and feel like it's something digestible if they've never dealt with DMR before. You don't have to know all of these things to be able to participate in DMR and use a DMR radio. But you do have to know enough of them, obviously, to get a radio running so that you can use it and then keep it updated so that if you go somewhere else or need to reprogram your radio, that's available to you. All right. Let's see if I can. I have to switch which screen I'm sending out. 1 second. All right. Do we update here? It should have mostly a blank screen that just says basic info. Does that look right, Steve?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. All right. So this is the TYT provided software. And the last radio that I programmed with it was my MDUV380. It shows you the version. If I had pulled info from a radio or pulled up a prior file, it would show me a serial number, a hardware version, a device ID. Most of the time, you're not really going to need this. General settings that I talked about. Again, this is the radio name, the radio ID, which I don't know my ID offhand. I don't have that one memorized. I just go with my call sign. And if you look up through some of the links that were provided and or just look up your radio model or your programming software online. Chances are that someone has written about at least most of these if you need more information on what each individual option does. Most of these, after I set them, I really haven't changed them at all. I mean, I may have enabled the voice announcement or disabled it again. And you can put in a programming password if you want to make sure nobody else can change the programming on your radio. You can change the backlight time for how long the radio stays lit after it's last had something changed, or after it's last received anything. You can change it between frequency and channel mode. With DMR, channel mode is usually much more logical and to try and work with. You can set a time zone. Yeah, a lot of options in here. Menu items is where I mention checking the box so that you can program it from the faceplate. And again, that's different between different radios. And digital contact. So this is the first one we need. And it's easiest to set these up kind of in this order because you have to use channel. You have to reference a digital contact, and then in zones, you have to list your channels. So if you build your digital contacts list first and before you build your channels, then it helps a lot because you can just go in and select them. It's like for here, just type in contact name Memphis. You want to leave it as a group call since it is a talk group. And then 314706. And then if you wanted Tennessee statewide, if I remember right, it's 3147. I would check that before you just assume that that's statewide because I have so many numbers in my head that I may have missed that one, but 314706 is our local Memphis area talk group.
Okay, now I may have missed it, but you're talking about that. Where is there a place where we can get all those call IDs?
So there are a few places. If you just look up, if you just look up DMR talk groups, there are there are so many. If you look up the and on the Brandmeister network, which is a whole separate topic, because there are multiple DMR networks. The local one is on Brandmeister. If you want to go further into different DMR networks, that's a new level of depth that I wasn't going to go into here because it very easily gets confusing trying to figure out which network to use. Just know that ours is Brandmeister. So if you go to their website, which I'll ask Bob to include this link in there, there are 1,400 entries.
We can go through those.
yeah, we can probably go through some of them.
It did look like that's another important part of this is to see what groups are, number one, what groups are available, and if you know what group you want to be in, how to find the numbers. So, okay.
Yes. So I'm trying to think of a page, like a local page that has our talk groups on it. And I know that there are some, but I don't remember where they are offhand.
Okay.
I'll look up some of those and see if we can get them on the website. If you find
something, then yeah, just give it to us and we'll put it on the.
All right.
Ian, isn't there a website for W4LET that lists which talk groups are like set up as static and which ones are available?
There is, and if you search W4LET on Repeater Book, it brings up the main page for it, and it shows you just some notes about it, which talks about the National Weather Service. that is used on there. The 314706, which is the Memphis local one, the Tennessee statewide, the 3147, which it also lists down here. And yeah, I'll also pull because you can also pull up a specific website for our local repeater, which I'll also include a link for.
I have a question.
All right.
Okay, I'm on Repeater Book.
Uh-huh.
And it says that there is a repeater for, it says, say for instance, 17.5 miles southwest DMR, and it'll tell what the repeater is and the frequency number. I suppose that's what that is. Now tell us, how would we put that in? I mean, what is the green letters and where does the green letters go, and where does the 442.01250 go?
Okay. Yeah, I will show you that. I'm pulling that up on mine now so that I can look at the same thing you're looking at. All right. So that is our next step, actually. So the digital contact, if you build that first, the Memphis local 314706. So now that we have a digital contact in there, the next step is going to be under channels. It just puts a default channel in here. Again, we've got to make sure this one is on digital. You can name them however you like to. I like to use the repeater and then a shortcut that works for me of the talk group that I'm using. So since it's just the Memphis local, just name it W4LET Memphis. So then, Pam, this is where that repeater book page comes in. So it shows you a receive, which is what you put in your RX frequency. So 443.0125. And then transmit frequency is the TX on here. So 448.0125, because it's a positive 5 megahertz offset. All right. And then under our contact name is where you drop down, and you should see a list of all the contacts you named. So since this is for our Memphis local one, we click Memphis. So on the page, and these are just some additional notes, it says TS2, so that's talking about time slot 2. So in the programming software, at least in mine, it says repeater slot and time slot, TS, RS. Those are all, if it's a 1 or a 2, those are all going to mean the same thing. So for the local one here, it says TS2 314706 for local. So we need to make sure repeater slot says 2. Color code, the default is 1. I haven't traveled a whole lot of places and programmed my DMR radio for them, but I've never had to change my color code off of 1. But if there was a different color code than the default, which is 1, then the repeater page for wherever you're looking should note that. Does that answer your question? I think that was Pam. Did that answer your question? Unless I'm thinking of the wrong person.
On your head. There you go. There you go.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I couldn't hear you for a minute.
Thank you.
All right, so any other questions on contacts or channels? I also, it defaults the power to high. I always set mine to low because I can set it higher if I need to. Otherwise, you just risk wasting battery. And just like on an analog system, you can set a timeout for how long you can transmit before the radio forces you off. And again, this is in seconds, just like most everybody's used to for programming an analog radio. And then the receive only option, if you were programming something where you just wanted to listen, or if you ran into.
I'll do that at the very, kind of at the end before it
If you
finishes. Don't forget that though.
or if you like have a public service frequency, for example, and want to make sure that you can't accidentally transmit on their frequencies. All right. Now we have zones. It provides you a default one, and I just named mine to Memphis. And it automatically added these in here since these are the only ones that I have. If you want to change them around, it's just as easy as highlighting and hitting add. If we had multiples over here, you can just select them and hit add, or delete, as however you want to arrange those. It's really just personal preference. And the next time we go into the zone, it's still all programmed there. And that's to get from finding the repeater frequency and information to making sure that your radio can transmit. That really is the base of everything you need to get a DMR radio working. Obviously, and this is going to vary based on your software as well, whether you're reading the information from the radio, writing to it. That's all extremely similar to any of the other radios, DMR or not, that I've used. Do we have any other questions? That really covers the basics of it. The websites that I mentioned have more information if you want to build scan lists. I don't typically use them because I just don't scan on my DMR radio. And you can do DTMF, but I've not needed it here so far on mine. Any other specific questions? Anybody need me to go back over anything?
Can I make a couple of comments again?
Sure.
Sure.
YouTube is your friend with DMR. This is like learning a whole new language. It's like going from English to Spanish, and it can be a pretty steep learning curve. But if you use YouTube for your radio,
No, that one will.
if you search YouTube for your radio and watch the YouTube videos over and over again.
Okay.
Am I not coming through?
You're coming through. I can hear you.
Okay. All right. So if you can watch those YouTube videos based on your own radio, so you can become familiar with that. If you want to cheat and do it easily, there's a website called bridgecomsystems.com. And if you have an Anytone radio or a radio that'll convert to the Anytone code plug, and these are called code plugs once you save them, my code plug and WA2BSM, who's the president of the Memphis Digital Radio Club here in Memphis, we've posted our code plug on bridgecomsystems.com. So you just basically have to get into the CPS software, which Ian is showing you, and download the code plug from Bridgecom Systems. And you load it into your radio and you're done. You're on DMR and you're on all the Memphis frequencies and all the local stuff and analog, everything's on in that code plug. So that's another simple way to do it. Once this COVID thing's over, Rick has that radio club, the Memphis Amateur Digital Radio Club, MDARC they call it, and they meet on one of the Saturdays at a church. And one of the services they perform is you bring your radio to the club and he'll load a code plug into it that's specific to that radio, and you can get started. It's much easier to start if you have a code plug that you can go in and modify yourself. It makes a lot more sense if you see some of the boxes already filled in on the CPS software. So that was my experience of getting started and being able to kind of understand the language. But it took 6 months. It's not something you're going to learn overnight. It took me 6 months to get a handle on this whole thing. Yeah. And that's all I got.
The Digital Club meets on the second Saturday at 10 o'clock.
And they have been, oops, sorry, Joe. And they have been doing digital meetings as well.
Yes.
Like Zoom meetings, yeah.
How can we get information about do they have a website or something where we can see about their digital meetings, or?
They do. I'd have to look up.
Digital Radio.
Called MDAR.
ARRL club, so you can go to the ARRL and look at clubs and click on it.
And then it tells you how to get into their Zoom meeting. Were they doing Zoom meetings or?
Yeah.
And it shows you each month their link.
Well, I don't know if it shows you each month. If you want, you can send KB2 BSM an email and he'll add you to the link.
Okay. I think you and I were talking about that, and I didn't realize they were doing digitals until or Zoom meetings until a week or so ago. So
I've attended a couple of their Zoom meetings.
Okay.
You can
just a note about the DMR repeater coverage. It's about handheld in most of Shelby County.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I've used it some in Tipton County. I've used it as far over at least as the Shelby Forest area. Not super far into Shelby Forest, but and I don't remember how far into Arkansas I'd hit it before. But it's got very nice coverage for the area, that's for sure.
The DMR group meets at 10 o'clock Zoom this coming Saturday.
Oh, that's good.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's the question.
Yeah, I've got a radiality and I bought a J-pole, 2 meters, 70 centimeter. Will that work for DMR?
Yes. Yeah, it's the RF portion of it is essentially identical. It just transmits it through data packets essentially instead of voice. But so far as the RF portion is concerned, there's essentially no difference.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Has anybody got anything?
LET, the frequency is in the mid range of the 440 frequency, so it should be pretty good.
Yep.
It's not on the very high or the very low end of the transmit range, so it should work fine. As long as it's tuned.
All right. All right, Ian, appreciate it. Anybody have any other question? I'm sure some reminder, I will put this on our Facebook page. And if you want it, if you're not on that, but want a copy of it, shoot me an email and I'll send you a copy of this video. Anybody got any other questions?
No, but I've got a comment.
Go for
it. I mean, this is not to take away from DMR, but Delta Club does have a fusion repeater. Anybody that has Yaesu fusion equipment, and there's quite a few, there's several fusion repeaters around, and we have one that was kindly donated by Bellevue Baptist Church. And it is located on the same tower that the 8.2 repeater is. So the frequency is 443.2. No, 443.7. And it is fusion capable, and just welcome anybody to use it, analog or digital. And nice thing about Fusion, you just push the button. You don't have to set anything else up.
Gotcha.
So anyway,
Well,
that was it.
Well, that's the catch. We wouldn't need a program for Fusion.
That's true.
Right.
And there's a caveat to that. You can use Fusion and talk Fusion to Fusion, but you cannot use the WiresX system unless it's tied in through the internet. And
that's exactly right. But and no, we do not have internet on it. And but like I say, people that just like to talk digital around town, there's your game right there.
Okay.
If you have the equipment.
Right. All right. Anything else on DMR digital? All right. Well, thank you, Ian. That was something that was brought up a month or so ago, and I'm glad that we had that presentation to answer that question. Anybody got anything else?
I do.
What you got, Mark?
Okay. I started a Facebook group for the Memphis metro area. It's a buy and sell group. So if you want to, if you want to join, you can. The link is in the Sparks.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that. It's kind of toward the end of the Sparks there. Yeah. You sent something to me about that a month or so ago, and I was a little, because you said something about it, and it was the same weekend we were doing the junk in the trunk, but it's a virtual type thing where somebody's got something, they can do it and be any time instead of like our junk in the trunk. So, all right.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
Remind me where the recordings are getting posted.
On our Delta Amateur Radio Club Facebook page.
Okay.
We've got a Facebook page. Usually I've got to I got to save this and I got to upload it. It'll probably be sometime tomorrow morning. Takes a little while to do all that.
I've got an announcement, Steve, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So, well, hey, everybody, this is Mary Jean. This is more of a reminder than an announcement, but I know it's hard to forget. It's easy to forget about renewing your membership since we're not meeting in person, but we are about to get into the 2021 year. And if you would like to go on and get a jump start on it, if you want to go to the club's website, deltaclub.org, and there's a membership button that you can click on, download the application, and then print it off and mail it in. If you look at the top of the application, it has the post office box to send it in, and then we'll work on getting that process for the 2021 year. So I know, it might be easy to think, oh, well, we're not meeting, so we're not having to pay for snacks or anything. And while that may be true, Delta Club also, of course, as you know, we've had so many repeater issues, and we invested in a new antenna and everything. So your dues, collectively, we all come together, and that's what keeps the repeaters going and things like that. So it's certainly important that we renew our memberships and all that. So just a reminder. And it's also listed in Sparks. There should be a link.
Yeah, on the Delta Club webpage, if you just see the Delta Club logo, go up to the top left of 3 bars and click on it, and you'll get the index and go to membership and get the application form from there if you're not familiar with the website.
Okay. All right. Anybody got anything else? I've been watching. I think Richard's about out of wine, so we need to start winding this thing up.
Yeah, but he feels no pain in his leg.
None.
All right, seriously, anybody got anything? I mean, this is good that we can get together. This is, you know, who would have thought we'd be doing this long? But, you know, when we first all started getting into our caves, I said, oh, let's just do it over the repeater or something. That wouldn't have worked anywhere near as well as this has. So, it's not as good as meeting in person, but I think it's keeping us going.
Steve, do you want to talk about our December meeting at all?
Yeah.
You just want to
bring your own meal to the Zoom meeting.
That's right. That's right. We're gonna do a potluck, but you got to bring your own
and drinks.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I think we're just gonna kind of have a Zoom social, which that should last about 10 minutes. The way that y'all been talking. You know, seriously, let's just, we don't at this point have any, if anybody wants any particular program, let us know, but we don't have anything planned. We're just, you know, since we normally have the potluck, it's more of a social type thing. That's what we're planning on doing. And that's the plan right now. All right. Anybody got anything else?
Got one thing for you, Steve.
Yeah, sure.
This is Pat. I've got, I was donated an old amplifier. I can't remember the brand name. It was made here in Memphis. I think that originally it may have been an 11-meter amplifier for CB. I'm not sure. It is strictly for parts if someone wants to try to do something with it. I have no use for it. It is a tube amplifier. But if anybody wants to is interested in that, let me know. I'll be glad to pass it on for free.
Probably if it was made in Memphis, Maycom.
Mako, yeah.
Shipping is always free.
Okay. Anybody got anything else? All right. I don't hear anything. Once again, Ian, I
was going to move, we adjourn.
There we go. All right. Once again, Ian, thank you. Once again, it was a good presentation. I thank everybody for joining us. We've got a motion to adjourn. Second. Richard's out of wine. He's saying second. All right. Don't forget to clean up around your area, push your chairs under the table, and we'll see you next month.
And don't forget the Friday morning breakfast.
Friday morning breakfast. That's right. I'll be there. Don't let that keep you from going. All right. See y'all later. Thanks.
All right. Take care. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Ian.